All right, you gloriously miserable accursed. It's Monday morning of week 3 of the Canadian federal election campaign, and who better to spend it with than the Curse of Politics panel? With us are Jordan Leichnitz and Scott Reid, and myself, David Herle. No Kory Teneycke today. He's out in BC, hanging out with his family. Too busy to come on the show. He'll be back tomorrow, I think. But we do have with us the great NTV, Nick Taylor-Vasey, back after a week's absence. And by the way, you were ably filled in for by Mickey.
What happened to Mickey?
Right.
Did she get
She might
doged?
get my.
Yeah,
she
we
might
have
get
some
my,
questions.
She might get my blessing.
She got doged. She just showed up and her job was gone.
Yeah.
I'm glad you got to.
What I mean is, welcome back, Nick.
Yeah. Good to see you.
I'm glad you got to meet my my wonderful colleague Mickey. She's the best. When she came to Politico, she like re-energized my journalism career. Is what Mickey means to me. So I'm glad she was part of the show, and we'll be back next week.
Well, you'd had a long career, and then you tailed off in motivation, and then you're sort of like a late stage artist.
Well, he is working
Elton
with
John and
us
Brandy
right now.
Carlisle. She brought you new energy.
You're sitting around the dive bar at 4:00 in the afternoon, like, I'm tapped out. I got nothing left.
I mean, you've been following politics recently. It's been a bit of a ride, and Mickey came along, and it was like everything's good again. It was great.
Fuck, that just sounds like Carney, eh, Scott?
Yeah.
No,
well, it's going well for him.
Mickey's the Carney of Politico.
I've often thought that Nick and Carney had a lot in common. You know, they both that kind of quiet command of a turbulent circumstance. They both reassure me.
Where are you, brother?
I'm in Calgary. I'm at an airport I'd never heard of before. A hotel I've never heard of before called Hotel 11. It's nice. And it's in Northeast Calgary, which is a place where I want to spend some time for the next couple of days.
Okay.
One louder.
What are you covering?
One louder.
I'm going to cover a few different races in town. Liberals seem to think they've got a shot all over this place. But George Chahal is going to be a guy I'm following around a bit later today here in Calgary midnight.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, he's a good guy to spend a day with. He's pretty charismatic.
Pretty interesting dude.
Where are the leaders this day of ours?
Mark Carney is a little bit to the west of me. He's in Victoria. And then he is going to hop over to the mainland and have a rally
Is this his
tonight.
first trip as Prime Minister into Western Canada?
No, but it's, I believe, his first to Victoria, where Liberals seem to think they've got a shot.
I think it's his first west of Winnipeg. Certainly on the campaign. It's his first west.
Yeah, he hasn't been out yet.
Yeah, okay. And then he's going to meet Premier Eby today, so he gets to be Prime Minister a little bit more. He sneaks in some PM time. And then tonight he's in Richmond for a rally.
All right.
Another part of town where they think that maybe they've got a shot to hold some
It's
seats.
also a very good place to hold a rally.
Yes.
It's conveniently located near the Vancouver airport. So I suspect he'll be jumping on his plane not too long after.
I look forward to the conspiratorial postings about how he flew people in from China in order to supplement his rally.
And Mr. Poilievre?
Mr. Poilievre is in northern British Columbia. He is in Terrace with his candidate Ellis Ross, a First Nations leader, former MLA. They believe
Former Christy Clark cabinet minister? No?
You'd know better than me. I don't spend a lot of time west of Ontario.
Stump Nick. That's the name of this morning show. Stump Nick.
Sure. I mean, sounds like a fact. And they seem to think they can pick that up from the NDP. And then he is going to go to Edmonton. So he'll be north of me at the end of the day for a rally in a business park in what looks like a very, very large warehouse with very high ceilings, on brand for his campaign.
Is a business park like a place where they have slides and swings, but everyone who's there has like a three-piece suit and a briefcase? Like, all right, forget it.
I think it's pretty much just the definition of a nondescript building in with a big parking lot next door. So that's where he's going to go. He can fit a lot of people.
Hopefully with better ventilation than airport hangars.
It's not been going too well on the headline front. It's not great when people are passing out and people start reporting on it.
It was good for the Beatles.
Like Mickey. Sure.
It was good for the Beatles. I mean, people passing out, fainting.
Two people out of 6,000. I mean, yeah.
All right. And where's the sweater today?
Jagmeet Singh is in Toronto. I'm not sure where in Toronto. Right now, I just know Toronto. He will have an announcement to make.
I'm going orange. I think he's just gonna be unsubtle and wear an orange sweater today. What do you think, Jordan? Am I on
You guys are
something?
all just envious of the depth of the sweater collection. Anyway, he's moved on to button downs now.
And so you don't know what he's doing. I suspect he's going to drive around Toronto looking for more than 10 people gathered somewhere and then stop.
Now we're just getting mean to Corey's not
You
here.
guys
We
are
thought
just catty.
have to-
Corey's
Sorry.
gone for one day.
we got to
You're
bring the
just
dick.
like, I'm
in
just
Corey's
gonna
absence.
bring no wit, all snark. Like, I'll
He'll
take
just
your
be
sauce,
wandering
but it
around
has
the
to be witty.
AGO
It
with a
has to be
camera.
witty.
Excuse me. Do you mind? Sorry to pull you away from the Cezanne, but I was wondering if you want to vote for me. No? Okay, thanks.
Wait, you want to make art jokes? You want to go there?
me? I got beautiful, expensive art behind me, sister.
Nick, I'm sorry for this.
That's fine. You're also lively. 6:43 a.m. Must be nice. Must be nice.
It's amazing. All right. If people were wise, and after they listened to this show, they went to the Ottawa Playbook produced by Politico, by you, what would they find of note?
The big thing today is that as of 2 p.m., candidate nominations close. And so we suspect, like many in the political universe, that there will be some opposition research that may produce headaches for various political parties and their candidates. We'll see who survives the week, I guess.
All right.
Likely hundreds of candidates will survive the week. But
likely hundreds will survive.
Likely hundreds
certain.
and hundreds and hundreds.
They've already
betting
lost
on
about
most.
3 dozen, it feels like. So
Yeah, do the Conservatives have any left to drop?
Yeah.
Oh, listen to the snark. She's
Oh,
getting in the mood.
I'm happy to bring it.
She's
I got
getting
lots,
in the-
I got
she's
lots
getting in
where
the
that
mood.
came from.
She's getting in the mood. All right, Nick, it was great to see you again. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Thanks very much.
Thanks to all of you. Bye.
My brain houses a variety of lists for things I consider deeply emblematic of Canada. There's a cultural list for things like poutine, snowmobile suits, and the Habs. A socio-political list for things like universal health care and the Charter. And the Songs of Gordon Lightfoot gets a list of its own. And then there's the land itself. Prairies, mountains, lakes and glaciers, old-growth forests, the Canadian Shield. That list goes on. Which is why I'm particularly chuffed to talk about a new environmental sustainability initiative from our presenting sponsor, TELUS. They've partnered with Nature-Based Solutions Foundation to develop a biodiversity protection standard. This is a science-based framework aimed at protecting endangered ecosystems across Canada, with special attention to our magnificent old-growth forests. It establishes better and more measurable conservation metrics, and it creates a repeatable conservation finance model. All of this not just because our land and ecosystems are a source of national pride, although that's part of it. The fact is they are critical and valuable assets for our sustainable future. Our irreplaceable biodiversity plays a vital role in climate resilience and supports diverse wildlife, like our iconic moose, beavers, and loons. Preserving it contributes mightily to our economy through ecotourism and responsible resource management. It creates green jobs, enhances how we live today, and ensures Canada continues to be a leader in global sustainability. For TELUS and Nature-Based Solutions Foundation, it just comes down to this truth. Protecting our ecosystems is an environmental, cultural, and economic necessity. When we do that, we protect everything else it means to be Canadian, maple syrup included. So, who wants to hear some polling?
I do.
Sure.
I'm still in my business park joke. I'm going to talk like a kid for the rest of the pod.
All right. This is from Polera. Polera's polling is brought to you by Enbridge, a leading Canadian energy infrastructure company, reliably and affordably fueling your quality of life and powering our economy. Okay, so what do we got? We've got a sample of 2,132 people from last Tuesday through to Sunday. The vote is static. 44 Liberal, 36 Conservative, 9 NDP, Bloc 6, Green Party 2, PPC 2. 14% of Canadians say that they're undecided. I should note that there are polls that are show a closer race, like the abacus race, which shows the two parties tied. There are polls that show wider races, like either Ipsos or Angus Reid, I can't remember, just yesterday.
Ipsos has a new one
Ipsos,
out.
yeah.
Yeah.
Showed a 12-point lead. These Pollara numbers are pretty close to the 338 average, I would say.
Greg Lyle at
Little
Innovative has a poll out too that shows the Conservatives actually in the lead, I believe.
1 point. That's right, Greg
Yeah.
Lyle. So that the Innovative and Abacus are at the close end of this race, and Ipsos and Ecos are on the outer edge of this
Yeah,
race. And
Frank has the Liberals running at 71%, I believe, right?
he's got them at 50.
Sorry, I know he gets a little touchy. It's just a joke. Just joke, Frank. We love you. Love your work.
Man. All right, here's some little additional polling tidbits for you, which illustrate, I must say, that it does appear, even though the vote intention is static, that there's still some Carney momentum out there. So when Pollara asks people who's best to improve healthcare, it's 31 Carney, 24 Polyev, 17 Singh. And that's a 7-point lead for Carney, and his lead on that question a week ago was 2 points. Best to help with affordability, Carney 34, Polyev 29, Singh 13. Carney's +5 now. A week ago, Polyev was +5 on that measure. Best to deal with Donald Trump, Carney 51, Polyev 28, Singh 5. Carney is +23 on that measure today, was +15 a week ago. And best to deal with the economic fallout from tariffs, Carney 49, Polyev 30, Singh 4. Carney is +19 now, was +15 a week ago.
And all he's done is sit in Ottawa or wander around the country blurting out bad French. I mean, my God.
Never has any incumbent been happier to hop off the campaign trail to do prime minister things. My God.
Fire your advisors. They are unneeded. This campaign shows that none of the wisecracking smarty boots know anything. God.
Well,
I'm still nervous. I don't know. Like,
well,
aren't you, David?
You should be. It's obviously a very fragile thing. It's very recent. It's very ephemeral. The Quebec thing, they did that Sank leaders thing last week, and I gather his French wasn't very good. But I mean, some people say, okay, it depends on what your expectations and your measurement are. But the best line that I've heard about it is that Quebecers think his French is perfectly good enough to take on Donald Trump.
Moi aussi.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, what's going to happen? What's going to happen this week? If you are, well, let's start with the opposition parties, and maybe let's start with the NDP for a change, Jordan, and say, what do you do? I mean, I saw some people talking over the weekend about how this is early to play the "we're not going to win, but elect a conscience" card. Although that's probably the card that ultimately needs to get played in this circumstance. So what do you do with week 3?
So at this point, the game for the NDP is creating a pathway for some of those liberal NDP switchers to come home. And, excuse me, there's a couple things I think that need to happen for that. So the first is the best news actually for the NDP is when it appears the Liberals are going to win a large majority. That's a necessary condition. Progressives have to feel very confident that there is no chance that Pierre Poilievre is going to win this election. So one of the indicators that I'm looking for is, of course, as we go, we're seeing the number of people who believe that a Liberal government is the most likely outcome of this election. That is growing. And so that's important that be there in order for those progressive voters to feel comfortable looking around. And then the second thing that they have to do is something we've already seen Singh start to move the messaging in this direction. But it's basically to say, look, you don't want these guys in Ottawa completely unchecked. It is important to have a strong New Democrat presence in Parliament in order to protect and to guarantee some of the things that you really care about, some of those social programs, some of those things that, if left to their own devices, the Liberals certainly would not do, and potentially would be happy to endanger through cuts. So he needs to make those two cases. A lot of that in incumbent ridings is also going to be a pretty solid re-elect a good MP type campaign as well.
Right.
So that is like totally separate from party intention. It's really going into those incumbent ridings and underlining that they've been served very well by those NDP MPs over the years. So I think we've already started to see the shift in Singh's messaging. Certainly, you saw it very clearly last week. He is talking about, what do you get when you send New Democrats to Ottawa? What is the value of the NDP in a parliament? And I think that is, you got to continue on that this week. I do think it is early to do a complete, well, we're not going to win. Like, it's always a fine art, because most voters, if you ask them, like, they believe that they're voting for a government. They believe that they are voting for somebody who is going to, or who's trying to win. And so you can't position yourself as a loser. You need to show that you're contesting for power, and that you have capacity there. So there is like a standard of national viability that has to be met for the party in order for this all to work. But the case that you're making really is that there's value in having that strong NDP presence, that there's especially value in having that in the case of a Liberal majority government. And don't worry, like, you have a permission slip as a voter. You can like Mark Carney, you can be concerned about Trump, and you can still vote NDP. So that's the case they have to make.
Right. The choice for Canada's energy future, as we seek to further decarbonize and secure our national electricity grid, is clearly our own made-in-Canada CANDU large reactor technology. CANDUs have been powering the Canadian economy, families, and industry for more than 60 years. Our existing CANDU reactors are being refurbished, updated, and modernized for today's needs and standards to run another 30 years, on time and on budget. But that's not enough. There is a need to build new large CANDUs across the country to help grow our economies with clean base load power. The Conference Board of Canada will tell you the economic stimulus of that investment will be well worth it. CANDUs use natural uranium fuel, mined and prepared right here at home. No imported enriched fuel needed. That means Trump tariff-proof energy security and reliability. CANDUs also provide vast quantities of life-saving medical isotopes used in hospitals right across the country. CANDUs are more than 90% Canadian, built and run with great-paying union jobs. And credit where credit is due. The province of Ontario and OPG have made the necessary investments in small modular reactors. These will be needed in more remote locations in the future. But it doesn't stop there. Today, the next generation large reactors are being planned for investment in many parts of the country, starting in Ontario. CANDU Energy and their employees are proud to be leading that effort. CANDUs, designed by Canadians, built by Canadians, for the benefit of Canadians. Let's power through. So, Scott, if I was running that campaign, I would take Singh out of the ads. And I'd make them NDP ads, not Singh ads. And I would have him accompanied almost everywhere he went by a more popular New Democrat politician. Because what Jordan is saying is they've got to make the case for the party. The leader is a clear drag on this circumstance, and he appears particularly unsuited for the moment. So I think I would take him out of the window.
That makes sense to me. But I think I'd also be very tempted to pull the fire alarm. And I hear what Jordan is saying. It's not a simple decision, and it isn't just math. You don't just look at the polls and go, okay, well, we got to do it now, because you have to think, well, how can I sustain for an entire half of a campaign a message that's built around we're not going to win? But I think this is such a unique campaign, and I think the stakes are sincerely so high that, yeah, I would take him out of the ads. I'd be tempted to have a big debate about whether NDP ads should be about the NDP and the values they fight for, or whether it should just be, this is how bad Mark Carney is. Like, I just think, to me, this whole week, whether you're a conservative or a New Democrat, there's an obvious thing that must occur, which is that if Mark Carney continues to be 51% of people's preferred prime minister, if he continues to be on these critical questions, particularly Trump, tariffs, economic security, around 50%, he's going to win the election. They must haul his star down out of the sky. And so I'd be tempted to go negative on him. And I'm not worried. I don't think, if I'm the New Democrats, that if I go negative on Carney, I push voters toward the Conservatives. I don't know that they'll make that move. So for both of them, I think I would just, like, this week has got to be rough up Carney and hope that the media are sufficiently bored by the dynamic of the campaign so far that they follow suit and make it really hard and put pressure on him at the microphone on a daily basis. He's taking 20 minutes of questions each day, Mark Carney. Great. Let's make those 20 minutes of pain. Let's see how he withstands it. I just think both the Conservatives and the NDP have got to unleash holy hell. And I'd be very tempted, if I were the New Democrats, to say, we're not going to win this election, but we damn near need to have someone fighting for the things that matter, so that, Mark Carney's comfortable with cuts, and Pierre Poilievre eats cuts for breakfast. He loves the idea. So we've got to fight for those core services and make certain that they don't get surrendered in some hysterical fight against Donald Trump. But I would go negative on Carney. That would be the name of the game if I was those guys.
So,
see, Jordan,
and I
I'll
think
put
that
I'll put an alternative proposition to you,
Oh,
Jordan,
okay,
and then I
go.
want you to get you to respond to the whole thing.
Yeah, sure.
Because I don't really fully agree with that.
Okay.
I don't really fully agree with that, because I think that the people who've left the NDP to vote Liberal right now really want Carney to defeat Poilievre. Really want Poilievre to lose, and they're fine with Carney being the guy that beats him. Maybe is a better way of putting that. And I don't. If the NDP have a silver bullet at Carney, shoot it. But if you're just gonna sort of slop around in the plagiarism territory,
No.
No.
then
I'm
I
not-
think
No.
then I think your voters will react badly to
Yeah.
that, because I think they'll think you're off Team Canada.
Yeah. So
But where I think the opening for the NDP is in this is, yeah, we have to fight Trump and we have to rebuild Canada, which is what Carney's talking about. But do you think he's going to be thinking about healthcare every day? I doubt it. You need somebody that's making him think about healthcare every day, etc. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality is somewhere in between the two of those things. And so the important thing, I think, and and I've talked about this before, but it's often like New Democrats, as I say, often have a low opinion of strategic voters. But strategic voters think that what they're doing is very noble. And so it's not necessarily that they love Carney. In fact, I would argue that that's actually probably pretty rarely the case. We may end up with a lot of people voting for Carney in a relatively loveless way as an instrument against Trump. But when the Liberals are in a position like this, I think New Democrats are often better making the argument, particularly when it comes from the leader, out of sadness, not out of anger. So we are disappointed to see that the Liberals are tacking to the center, that they are ready to balance the books on an arbitrary timeline on the backs of the social programs that Canadians count on, that type of thing. Now, the attacks that the NDP needs to roll out, it's not the stuff about his resume. It's not anything like that. They have to be picky. They have to go to his business dealings. They have to go to the idea that Mark Carney is somebody who has lived in really, truly incredible wealth for much of his life, who is disconnected from the concerns of everyday Canadians, who apparently doesn't do his own grocery shopping, who doesn't understand what it means to make the choices that many Canadians are making every day. And so they have to find a lot of different ways to paint that picture. And then importantly, it's not just that Carney is a rich guy. It's that Carney is a rich guy who's now putting policies in the window and indicating that he's going to govern in such a way that is good for wealthy people and big business, because he has spent his career working for wealthy people and big business, and this is what he knows. And so they have to make that case. That's the case that I think is useful with those type of switch voters. It's not just any kind of attack. It has to go to motivation, and it has to go also to what the stakes are for those voters. And so I think, you've seen the campaign making that case. I think they're going to continue to make it over a variety of channels. So not just through the leader, but also through other channels. And that's like, you have to do that. You have to provide a push reason to get people off of Carney, and then a pull reason to get them back to the New Democrats, which is that you can't leave these guys unchecked here in Ottawa. You are like, the country is about to elect the most right-leaning Liberal Prime Minister since Paul Martin. And it's true. It's
Here.
true,
I know.
guys.
And
And
it
you guys
terrifies
are,
me.
yeah, but it's about to happen. And
I'm in
that-
heaven. Fucking
and
that's dinner. Give me more. I'll
yeah.
eat 2 servings.
And so if that's going to happen, then it's doubly important that you have New Democrats there to protect those things. And so that's the case that they have to make. They have to create that permission structure. And as for the question of Singh, look, I think that there's no doubt that Jenny and her team, and the negatives that they have like really layered and paid for and driven home on Singh, have come home to roost. But I would also say that when you look underneath the numbers, you often see that the people who hold the most negative opinion about Singh, those tend to be NDP conservative switchers. So there is, I think that he still has an important role to play in that message. And he is still the party's best spokesperson in terms of those things. So you're still going to, I think, continue to see him out there. But the party brand itself, the idea that people trust New Democrats in a crisis to defend those things that matter to them, is going to be core to this closing message.
Yeah, I hear you.
I hear what you guys are saying, but Jesus H. Christ, come on, guys. Carney's at 51%, and whether it's New Democratic voters who've gone over because they want to see him beat Trump and Poilievre, or whether it's people who are worried about Trump, I mean, this relationship, this affection is exactly 4 weeks old. I don't believe it's cemented. And whether it's his business relationships, whether it's Brookfield, whether it's his smile, as the Conservatives tried pre-writ, like something, like I just think, as a Liberal, the thing I fear is that this week, that between
you fear
now
the
and
slipper doesn't fit at midnight. That's what you fear.
I know. I know. I'm so old. And
Once the lights come on,
I'm so
Canadians
trembling.
might have a second look,
I'm
right?
so trembling in fright. The slightest noise makes me jump. But I live in fear that for this next week, that they will just all turn their guns on Carney and dampen the glow of his star. And that just seems to me, therefore, to be the logical thing they have to do. And yes, David, there are risks to it. And there's a logic that people have embraced in order to get to their enthusiasm for Carney. But I think it's got to be dampened. And if it isn't, I don't think there's a route to victory for either of these parties, or success, if we put it more precisely. So I just think they've got to bring the lumber, and I don't think Poilievre should do it himself with a microphone. I think it's got to be paid, and I think they both have to unleash it, and they may come from slightly different places, but put pressure on him. We haven't seen this guy have to, skate the puck out of his own end yet. And
yeah, he's had a pretty smooth ride.
Well, that's absolutely what I would be doing in their circumstance. I would have people moderating focus groups 24/7, trying to find that fucking thing.
Yeah.
So just a quick side note before we sign off, though. Carney's going to be in Alberta this week. What do you think you should do with Danielle Smith, Jordan?
I think this should be a Sister Soldier moment. I really do. And I know we've talked about that before, or pardon me. I was obviously half listening. Poilievre. No, yeah. Carney in Alberta. So the opposite, right? Like, I think he has to show that he has some capacity to hear the concerns that are brewing / have been brewed for him by Danielle Smith and others, and that he can speak to people there on issues of economic growth in a way that resonates to them. I think he has shown, he can talk about the threat of tariffs and what that means to our economy resonantly in Ontario, but we haven't really seen that tested out west yet. So that's what I'm going to be watching to see is how is he able to land that message there? Is he able to land it? How does he also lead, really, like in that space where we're now seeing more of these regional divisions? Is he capable of going toe to toe with the Danielle Smiths, the Scott Moes, and presenting a vision that is compelling to people in the West. So that's what I'm going to be watching for.
Scott, what do you think? Does he take a confrontational tone with her, adversarial, uh, on the Canada-US thing, or does he look like a guy that can work with anybody? What's the play with him and Danielle Smith right now?
I don't think he goes confrontational. I don't think he goes looking for a fight. I think she's likely to try to give him one. But my theory for Carney for the rest of the campaign is that even when he's campaigning, even when it's a pure campaign day, when he doesn't get to put on the wardrobe of the prime minister, he should seek to replicate prime ministerial days. And so to me, that means two things. One, that he does not have a confrontational message, that it looks like he's desperately working hard to be holding up the hand. And I actually think that the snarkier, smaller that she is, he should be the more gracious. And I'm not I'm not sort of being Pollyannish about it. Like I'm like, oh, let's like a sort of 1970s let's rise above thing. But I think that when he's gracious and national in his perspective, she looks smaller and she looks more parochial. And I think that's his best play, is to make her look parochial and judo her in that way. And I think there's one more thing more, which is the Liberals have been very adept at re-embracing the symbols of the nation, national unity, the maple leaf, the red and white. And I think you play that as hard as possible there. I think that he presents himself in a sort of unified way, so that not only does she look small, but that she looks tribal. And I think it's really, really, really important to just turn that. Like, I mean, there's been a loud pro-Canada message throughout from this campaign, but I would turn it up to 11.
And I think the thing to bear in mind is that a big part of Carney's offer to voters right now is no drama. So he needs to find a way to show leadership among that crowd, and to be sure, Danielle Smith and Mo and others will be out there laying cunning little tempting traps for him. But he has to find a way to look prime ministerial, to look very in control of that situation without feeding that drama.
What do you think,
Right.
David?
I agree with you. I do agree with you. I mean, I think it's a tempting wedge in Ontario to play the card against her, but I think you're right about what the overall offering is, and that would damage that. But I do think if she lays down some markers again when he's in town about what has to happen or Alberta leaves, I think you should have a sharp response to that.
Yes, there has to be. And that's kind of what I'm getting at with the pro-Canada. Like, there's got to be Alberta is stronger with Canada. Canada is stronger with Alberta. And, let's be leave no uncertainty on this point. And it's got to be crystal clear. Make that, if that's
She's going to have to be fought at some point. I think she's a separatist.
No, she clearly is. There's no subtext.
I think she's a
anymore.
flat out. I think
there
she's
is
a
no
flat
subtext
out,
anymore.
I think she's not fighting this back. She's trying to drive it, in my view. Especially when you look at the people around her.
Her language has not been Alberta first. Her language has been Alberta only. It has been a message of at the express expense of other parts of the country.
No, and it's not even coded anymore. She's reaching out to separatists in Quebec in order to ferment this, and it really cannot be overstated, the toxicity and recklessness of that.
Just one last quick second. It's not Alberta that worries me, obviously. As a Liberal, I'm worried about BC. I see, and I asked you for those numbers earlier this morning. I think you said that they're tied at 40-40 with the NDP at 16, which I think represents a little bit of a rally in the NDP vote.
It does, yeah.
And I am anxious that the Conservatives appear to be firming up their vote in BC. The NDP are rising, and I think it's going to be the most fascinating laboratory to watch in the country, because it's like the 905, and then you got a large suburban community there, and it looks like it's turning into a jump ball. And I like, if those issues of cost of living and crime on the streets and stuff. I don't think it was a mistake that Poilievre was making a crime announcement out there. I thought that made a lot of sense. So that to me is a spot that I'm anxious about. Carney's going to be there today. We'll see what he has to say.
I think that safe supply issue is a good issue for Poilievre. It may not be, he may not be substantively right. I'm no expert in it. I know that there are wide opinions on whether he's substantively right, but he is politically right.
Yeah, he's not substantively right, but he's politically right, and the BC NDP government would agree. That's why they shifted position on it in the last campaign.
Right. Okay, let's wrap it up with a blessing or a curse.
Go ahead, Jordan.
Oh, all right. We'll give Scott a minute to do somewhere. No. So my blessing today is going out to somebody I was delighted to see as a candidate again, and that's Ruth Ellen Brosseau. So you may remember Ruth Ellen from the 2011 election. She was
the Joanne Zazelenchuk of the 2015
single mom bartender election, who was elected. And I have to say, like, this woman endured more political scrutiny and pressure that would have like crumbled career politicians. Like, she really was raked over the coals, and there is nobody that I have seen in.
She was the one that was in Vegas.
That's right. Yep.
I love that story, man.
And honestly, there is nobody who has who worked harder to fill that role, to become an MP. She ultimately became House Leader. She held the riding until 2019. She lives there. She married a local farmer, and she's going for it again. She lost to the Bloc by less than 1,000 votes.
I even married a guy for politics.
And she's back. No, actually, it's so sweet. Like, they have like a farm and a farm store. Anyway, it's a really great story, and I think we need more people who do not come with lawyer backgrounds and and who've lived a bit of a different life. And I'm so happy to see her back. She's great. And so my blessing is going out to her. Go get it.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, Scott.
Well, I have a positive message this morning as well. My blessing goes out to all those who are pounding away in the salt mines of the campaign, because we're now at that kind of halfway point. This is the point where if you're at Liberal Party headquarters,
it's the heavy drinking point.
It is heavy drinking. The days feel long. Sometimes it's hard to see, like, what's the benefit? I'm shoveling gravel all day long, and it feels like all I'm getting is a sore back. And so my hey you goes out to a young guy I talked to at a Liberal Party headquarters on the weekend. My son introduced me to him. His name is Connor. This poor son of a bitch, this sad son of a bitch, was working for the party. Can you imagine? He had been working in the party office, thinking that his fate was certain death, that he was soon going to be covered in leaves and topsoil. And now suddenly it appears as though he has a shot at working on not just a winning campaign, but a historically intriguing campaign, one that people will remember and write about. There are going to be songs to the Connors of the world when this campaign is over. So my shout out goes to Connor and all those, to be honest, all those who are slaving away. This next 10 days between now and the debate, this is the hard times, man. This is where it's really like this
is where your soul leaves your body for a brief period during a campaign.
Days. Yeah.
All right. I'll be generous today, and my blessing goes out to the Conservative campaign, which a week or so ago looked like it might literally implode. Looked like it might come apart at the seams, both in terms of the bottom falling out, in terms of its polling, and in terms of the campaign organization itself rupturing. And they appear to have steadied the ship internally, and they appear to have at least steadied the numbers from further deterioration, and maybe started to claw their way back into some fights. So from what looked like it might be on a train that was going right off the track a week ago, I think they're looking pretty solid and back in the game today. They still have their structural problems that led to those circumstances in the first place, but it appears as if the machine is back and humming and working. So
I think that's
an important course. That's an important,
I thought he had a good weekend.
That's an important management exercise in the middle of a campaign.
I thought he looked good on the weekend. I thought he had a good weekend.
Yeah. I still think he'd be better if he wasn't doing the rallies.
Yeah. Or if he'd made this pivot a month ago, but anyway.
Yeah.
But he's not good.
All right. I'd like to thank our presenting sponsor, TELUS, and our sponsors, Can Do and Enbridge. Obviously, like to thank Jordan and Scott for showing up, and a curse to Kory for not showing up this morning. And all you accursed who took a weekend off from us, sadly for you, we're back and back in your brains again every day this week. See you tomorrow. Take care of yourselves.